Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots, and welcome, fellow deplorables. And welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I am Dr. Nasser Sheikh with our executive producer, Rick Trader, on the other side, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. Want to give a huge shout out to our listeners in Jacksonville, Tampa, the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Colorado, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and all you leftists, you lovable leftists out there on the wrong coast, the left coast, out in Long Beach, California. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. And what would be a shout out just to our listeners? How about to the rest of America, to the whole world? Because what do we do when we start out? Isn't it just another great day to be alive and well and free and living in the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world, bar none.
Absolutely.
Well, Rick, go ahead.
Well, Nasser, it's great to have you with me today. Again, my voice is, I feel fine. I really do feel fine, but I'm getting over this cold. And you're going to handle the yeoman's side of the business today. But, you know, I know that you still have more reflections going back to President Trump's State of the Union address.
Yeah, we were a week here ago, and, we were sort of wondering what was it going to be about. They sort of gave a little bit of an inkling out to, as they normally do, but a lot of it was kept back, which a lot of the press didn't like, because supposedly whenever these State of the Unions are done, both sides are sort of given, the copy ahead of time. And the president, he's allowed to sort of add a little thing at the very last few minutes, but they're pretty much what they call locked in. Well, I'll tell you what, not only was this president not only locked in, he was firing on absolutely all cylinders that day. I think Newt Gingrich said it best. This was a shift in the whole dynamic of this presidency. I know everybody tries to use hyperbole all the time whenever these things happen, but I'll tell you what, 72% of Americans, this is the CNN poll, this is from CBS, 80% of independents love the speech, 76% of the people agreed with the immigration, the way that President Trump was sort of, going in the direction. He was witty, he was charming, he used people from the gallery. He had a 10-year-old that was fighting brain cancer. He had somebody he was an American hero, an American armed forces personnel person who actually was at the gates, I believe, of one of the chambers, the Holocaust chambers, I think Auschwitz. And he also had a survivor from Auschwitz as well. And they both met there together. They sang happy birthday to a service person. I mean, that was the great part of it. And then if you want to take a look at the other part, the Democrats, here they were, all dressed in white, missing their Klan head suits, the women in their suffrage outfits. I thought women were supposed to be their own thing.
It would be more historic, more historically accurate if they were the women that were dressed all in white had their headgear on too, their pointed KKK hats, because it was the Democrat Party that created the Ku Klux Klan. They founded the Ku Klux Klan. One of the things I wanted to respond to, Nasser, I think you're 100% right about the speech, and I really think that President Trump has found his stride as being president. I remember right after 9/11, some of the people some of the newscasters were saying that we had a president that found his voice. Remember that?
Yes.
Well, I think the other night during the State of the Union address, it was proof positive that President Trump has learned how to be president, and he has it in stride now, and he's right in pace. I think it was a magnificent job. And again, when you didn't bring it up yet, I'm sure you're going to talk about it, the rebuttal.
Yes.
The lady that ran for governor in Georgia, Stacey Abrams or Adams?
Abrams. Yes.
What did she talk about? Nothing. What
Nothing.
ideas and plans did she have? Nothing. The only thing that she could do is complain about the president, complain that she lost, and the Democrats have no image for America unless you want to take in that crazy Green New Deal thing. That's
Oh
totally
my goodness.
unrealistic. But what was your take on Stacey Abrams?
Listen, I don't, you know what, to come up after any president
Hmm.
and to be in a chamber, they try to dress it up. They try to put people in back. They try to put props up. They've done it with people in front, on the
Hmm.
sides.
Hmm.
It's really, really tough. And then if you don't have anything substantive to talk about other than attacking the other person and attacking the other side, it just sort of like doubles and triples down on the, you know, on the absurdity of the moment. And you
Hmm.
can tell when a lot of these Democrats talk, they're not happy, Rick. They're not happy. There's no smile on their face. I didn't see Stacey Abrams smile even once, even when she was talking about her father
Mm.
giving a coat to some guy because he was walking home from work one day when the family car was sitting at home. Nobody had to question it. Why is the car sitting at home and he's walking back from work? I mean, these are just stories that they use. They're not even true, probably. I'll probably get hit for saying that. But you know what? Who cares?
Well,
It's just that,
you're 100% right, Nasser. These are miserable, nasty people,
yes,
and not only
yes.
that, because they lost the presidency, they're in a foul mood. So here you have these nasty, miserable people that are in a foul mood, and what do you get? Well, you get Stacey Abrams.
That's right. I mean, the left is always angry. Have you ever seen a happy liberal?
No, no, and you know, and let's take it to the extreme, Nasser. The number of liberals or people each and every year that commit suicide. Very seldom you get a conservative commit suicide, but look at Hollywood. Hollywood is full of suicides. What else is Hollywood full of? Liberals. So you,
Right.
you can take it that way. You know, these are mean, nasty, horrible, miserable people, and they're in a very bad mood. They're in a very bad mood to
They
our country.
really, really are.
Well, Nasser, the other night, President Trump was in Texas, in El Paso, and he made another great speech. What do you think he's going to do down there? Do you think he's going to call for an executive action and build the wall?
Well, he's got that choice. It's hard to read right now what's going on. You notice how every 2 or 3 days coming into this next Friday, 3 days from now, they're hinting that there's some type of a kumbaya moment is coming together in this
Mm-hmm.
committee,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're going to reduce the bettings for these, illegal aliens. They're upping it by $700 million. They're going to give maybe 1.7 billion now instead of the 1.3 or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
they're always saying, "Yeah, I think he's going to sign. I think he's going to sign." I don't think he's going to sign it, at least from his rhetoric and the way he made his statements at El Paso last night. I don't think he's going to do it. It's either declare the national emergency, or they're looking at, I think, Federal Statute 10, I think subsection, 8208, where the Secretary of Defense can basically claim that they need to do something
Mm.
to stop, some type of an emergency situation that's occurring that's going to harm Americans. I've got the whole statute here, but it's just a boring read. But it's something that they can do. He's got to notify Congress, and they can find money out there. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a ton of money that they can find. And you know what? It's still going to, no matter what they do, they're going to look at it and they're going to go judge shopping.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, in the end, Donald Trump, even the Ninth Circuit, he just won something. We're going to be talking about it later with one of our guests. He just
Right.
won a 2-1 decision on that. So there's a lot of things going on. I think he's got on his side. I think the American people know that he has tried.
Mm-hmm.
He closed the government, opened the government, gave them 3 weeks.
Well, Nasser,
Nothing happened.
you
Go.
cannot compromise with these
No,
people.
you can't.
Before
You
I
can't.
have you take us to a break, Nasser, I just want to mention one other thing. And
Sure.
we have this posted up on our website, ccrshow.com. We've got a lot of great articles up there. But right now we've got an article on our website. It's a Gallup Latin America poll that says 42% of the people in Latin America want to get out of Latin America, and they have the United States as a destination. Think of the millions of people that that are planning on moving to the United States. That's why we need the wall. That's why we need we need not just the wall, we need our army down there. We need the border guards down there. We need all our assets down there to stop this invasion, and that's what it is. Now, sir, take us to a break, if you will.
All right, Rick. Well, you're listening here to the Conservative Commandos radio show with yours truly, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and our executive producer, Rick Trader, on the other side. And we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos radio network studios around the world on the internet, on Al Gore's internet. Coming to you from TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio, and AM FM 24/7. Folks, we'll be right back on the other side of the breaks.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share. This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Socialism has been kicking around as a philosophy of economics and government since the beginning of the 19th century, impelled by Karl Marx and the communist movement, but before that by establishment figures like George Bernard Shaw, who wrote The Intelligent Woman's Guide to Socialism. And in Britain, socialism was the theme of a political party, the Labour Party. And it was overtly adopted as the philosophy of government after Churchill was defeated after World War II. And they didn't shy from calling themselves socialists, and they adopted a socialist program. But in America, socialism has remained a dirty word. Even those who've moved up to advocating it have shied away from that more than a program or a platform. There was a socialist party in the beginning of the 20th century, but it never got more than 15% of the vote and died a quick death. But now we have a Democratic Party that is overtly advocating socialism, not the Scandinavian socialism, which is keep industry in private hands, let the economy stay as it is, but lay onto it high government taxes and massive new government services. That's what you see in Sweden and Scandinavia and to some extent in Britain, Germany, and France. Not that at all. Instead, the Marx socialism, which is take the means of production away from the private sector and vest the control in the government. Let the government run the banks, the utilities, the steel companies, the car companies, the industries, the services, Apple, IBM, Amazon. Let the government run it all. And that philosophy has never been tested in American politics. The phrase social is appealing to those who want to demonstrate their revolution against the establishment. But among Democrats lately, the Pew Research poll showed socialism was 10 points more popular than capitalism as a governing philosophy. Well, socialism simply replaces the tyranny of the marketplace with the tyranny of the government. And instead of winnings and gains and the good things in life being rationed by money, they're rationed by government favor. And the weakness of capitalism is greed, and the weakness of socialism is corruption. And corruption inevitably dominates the government under socialism, and it becomes a tool for political conformity and ultimately for regimentation. Because the key difference is that the capitalist lets people decide what they want to do. Pursue your own enterprise, make money as you wish, invest in what you want, work where you want. Because it doesn't much care about the outcome. It just wants the process to go ahead. But socialism cares passionately about the outcome. And as a result, it has to regiment each step of society to make sure there's no climate change, make sure that health care can become available, make sure that that we don't have carbon-guzzling cars or airplanes or whatever they're going to zero in on. It becomes a formula for regimentation and militarization, really, of the economic sector. And as such, it eliminates choice and leads to what was once called the road to serfdom. And we're going to have a real debate over that now. And it's about time we had. And the capitalists are going to win overwhelmingly.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
And we're back here on the Conservative Commandos radio show with yours truly, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and on the other side, our executive producer, Rick Trader. And Rick, we have got three great guests here for our show today. Our first guest, he's been with us before. It is John Miller. He's the Blaze Media's White House correspondent. He's host of the White House Brief. He's going to be talking about It's Time to End Black History Month. Oh, that's going to be a great topic. I was reading his stuff on Twitter. Good stuff. Next, we've got Jennifer VanLaar, who's a Southern-based political communications and research consultant. She's going to be talking about an article about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on Monday gave another win to the Trump administration. I'm going to be talking to her article about that. And our last guest is Jane Orient. She's a medical doctor. She's currently the president for Doctors for Disaster Preparedness. She's going to be talking about the State of the Union and about American medicine and how Donald Trump sort of weaved in that tapestry of what we're supposed to do as a friendly nation. What do we do with the illegals and the legal immigrants, that are here? So she's going to give the medical perspective on that, Rick. Three great guests, as usual, here on the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Also, that when we have Jennifer VanLaar on, she has another article I want to get into with her about Kamala Harris likes full jails because they're cheap labor. Now, here's one of these Democrats that are coming out for a $15 minimum wage.
Right.
However, when she was the head law enforcement officer in California, she maybe didn't feel that way. She liked cheap labor. So, Nasser, we do have three great guests. Ocasio-Cortez is at it again, Nasser. I love this woman. She's so much fun. She's so entertaining. She's a laugh a minute.
She really is. She's the gift that keeps on giving. But something, Rick? Although we sort of, make fun of her and there's a lot of memes that are out about her, you have to understand that everything starts with a drop in a pond. That pond, starts to ripple. That ripple turns into a river. the river turns into tributaries into rivers, then rivers lead into oceans, and before you know it, you're engulfed and you're drowning and you can't get out.
Right.
Look at some of the things that we thought about 10, 15, 20 years ago that we thought were never going to be possible in a country like America.
Obamacare, a national health care system. There you go. That's a great example.
Who would have ever thought? You're right.
You're totally right, Nasser. You know, it's like...
It's stupid but scary.
You're exactly right. I have two sides with her. She's so ridiculous. Bernie Sanders is so ridiculous. The rest of the Democrats are so ridiculous. But they start talking about something, and then someone else picks it up, and then someone else, and it starts to spread like a plague. And that's what I'm afraid of about this Green New Deal. By the way, let's be honest. The New Deal, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal, was a colossal failure.
Yes.
And what brought the United States out of the Great Depression was actually the Second World War. We had a guest on yesterday that talked about that. And check out yesterday's show, Conservative Commandos radio show. We had Myron Ebel from the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Myron wrote a great article about the New Deal and the Green New Deal, and one didn't work, neither is the other, but it costs the government a whole lot of money in experimenting with the New Deal. And the Green New Deal, I think, is full of disasters. Ladies and gentlemen, you really need to learn the devil in the details with this new Green Deal.
You really do. And they were saying that the New Deal really isn't new. It's just old stuff rehashed, and they've just put solar and wind technology, basically onto it. And here's the other thing. The other scary part about it is, Bernie Sanders talks about it. People are going to joke about it and say, oh, that's an elderly gentleman. He's an old white guy, how they single everything out into sort of elective issues. But the thing with Cortez is that, first of all, she's obviously she's female. I don't know if you can say that now in this agender society. She may not like that. She might
well,
be.
We can
I'm not using the wrong pronoun. Exactly.
We can. We're not politically correct, and she is a woman. So she is a female. There's only two sexes. No matter what the other side wants us to believe, there are two sexes: male and female. And God made you one. He didn't make you the other.
Just look between your legs and you see who you are.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, Nasser. This is a family show. But I just said, God made two sexes. He made male, he made female. He made you one. He didn't make you the other.
Right. And the thing is with her is because she's a millennial, the thing is a lot of millennials, they don't know about, socialism. They don't know about communism. It's not taught in American history anymore. And they revere like Che, people have got Che t-shirts. They got Castro t-shirts. They've got, all kinds of t-shirts out there.
Remember Obama when he was in Havana had pictures taken in front of that big mural of Che Guevara?
Absolutely. So they're looking at this.
Be a hero. All right.
And when they ask millennials on campus, what do you think of socialism? They go, oh, yeah, I think it's okay. I think capitalism, is bad. 55% of millennials think socialism is okay. You know why? Because they haven't tried American socialism yet. It hasn't been done by the right people.
That's because they're still living in their mother and father's basements. They haven't gone out. They haven't gotten a paycheck. They haven't paid taxes. They haven't paid a mortgage. They don't know what life is like. I heard a good analogy one time. These young millennials or liberals or socialists that are in college, let's say, okay, you're working real hard for your grades, you're getting A's and B's. Well, let's take everything above a C away from you and give it to someone else who isn't doing so well in school. They go, whoa, wait a minute. I don't like that. I'm working for my grades. And you're right, Nasser. These kids today are not being taught. They're not being taught history. They're not being taught mathematics or science. What they're learning is gender studies. Socialism is what they're learning. In California and in New Jersey, it's mandated that schools teach LGBTQ history. All right.
Right.
It's It goes on and on and on. Well, as we were talking earlier, that President Trump did go down to El Paso, Texas, and there was another guy in El Paso who put on a rally or whatever, and that was Beto O'Rourke. Did you watch any of that, Nasser?
Oh yeah, there was a challenge out there, who's going to bring out the most people, and this is in Beta, the Irishman O'Rourke in his backyard, in his hometown. He couldn't outdraw the president. And the funny thing was, when you see some of the video pics that people had out there, at his rally, you could hear the Trump overture coming through the loudspeakers.
Is that right?
While he's doing it. And so they had 8,000 or 9,000 inside the building for Trump. They had another 10,000 to 12,000 outside. And the estimates from the mainstream media were saying Beto O'Rourke had 10,000 to 15,000. At the most, if there was anything.
15,000?
That's what they said he had.
For Beto O'Rourke?
For Beto, but he didn't. This is just what the media was reporting. It was more like people that were down there. They were saying probably in the range of maybe 2,000 to 3,000 at the most. And most of them had Mexican flags there, hardly any American flags there. I mean, it was just one of those things that, and the weather was, they said it was it was in the 40s. So, I mean, people to stand outside again, this is where Trump is at. This is where he's at in his element, talking to the people, bypassing the mainstream news, and doing what he needs to do. So, again, the mainstream will spin it, towards Beta or whatever. But, Trump held the day once again.
Right. Well, Nasser, we do need to take the break. You want to take us to it?
Absolutely. And we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios. I'm your co-host here, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, with our executive producer, Rick Trader, on the other side. And we can be heard around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. Folks, don't go away, because on the other side, we will be speaking with John Miller, the Blazes Media White House correspondent, host of the White House Brief, and his article is "It's Time to End Black History Month," and then we've got two guests following right after that. So don't go away. We'll be back in just a few minutes with words from our sponsors.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1 and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share. This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm your humble host. My name is Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and I've got my executive producer, Rick Trader, on the other side. And we're coming to you around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, AM/FM 24/7, and also now broadcasts on television on the AUN TV network in Northern California. Well, I want to introduce our first guest that we've got on our show today. He is John Miller. He is from the Blaze's Media White House correspondent, and he's host of his own show, The White House Brief. He's previously worked at Fox News, at The Blaze, Mercury Radio Arts, and you can follow him on Twitter at Miller Stream. John is going to be talking to us about, I don't think it's too much of a controversial subject at all. I think it was just, I don't think he got too many responses to it. Very, very few probably. But when I saw this thing twittering, I was like going, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? But here's his article. It's time to end Black History Month. Why do we want to divide America? Oh boy. What are you doing there, John? Welcome back.
To me, it's common sense. It's common sense. I mean, it's 2019, and I mean, you know, and now we have Black History Month. We're dedicating an entire month to celebrating just one people. I mean, at a certain point, you have to wonder, when do we decide that Black history is part of American history? And my fear is that we're going to get to a point in this country where, you know, we have Black History Month, and then next month, March, as you well know, is Women's History Month, and then we're going to have Hispanic History Month, Native American History Month, Asian History Month, and now we have the Latino community. The transgender Latino community is very upset because Latino Heritage Month does not incorporate them because the O is masculine. So they need the X to represent them. So they want their own History Month. We're dividing the country, giving everyone their own History Month. I think we just end the History Months altogether, celebrate American history throughout the entirety of the year, because everyone shares the same history. It's the same story. We have the same heroes, and we should celebrate that.
Well, give me an idea. What has been the feedback from people, that yourself, okay, so you gave us an idea of that, why we shouldn't need it. And obviously then every other, group is going to want it. And I think this is what the Democrats and the liberals use all the time when they use their identity politics. I mean, what better way to segment a certain group of people by sort of giving them their month or giving them their day? And when does it end? But for you, when you put this out there, what are you getting back? What's the feedback?
Well, I knew the left is not gonna be popular on the left, because that's a given. They love Black History Month and they love identity politics. They love dividing politics along the lines of race and gender and immutable factors. But I was surprised, I have to say, at the amount of conservative feedback I got that wasn't too happy with my call for it. And I understand the argument that blacks have been marginalized and therefore we have to rise them up for a month. The issue is, if schools are teaching Black history, because that's where it originated, was in the schools, and they wanted to, make sure that kids were getting a proper education of Black inventors and Black ingenuity and Black heroes. The problem is, if you're teaching history, if you're teaching the Civil Rights era, and you're not talking about Harriet Tubman, or you're talking about the Civil Rights era, you're not talking about Sojourner Truth, or if you're talking about the 1800s, you're not talking about Frederick Douglass. If you're talking about the Civil Rights movement, and you're not talking about the people who fought, Martin Luther King, and you're talking about all of the heroes, even Malcolm X. If you're not talking about those people and you're teaching history completely the wrong way. And I mentioned a few heroes that a lot of people don't talk about. Armistead during the Revolutionary War. There was a hero at Bunker Hill that a lot of people don't know about. All these people are people that I think are part of the American story. And so I think that we do a disservice to the American story when we say, Black people have their own history. So I wish conservatives would understand that. I thought conservatives were the party trying to fight against identity politics. But apparently it's still controversial amongst conservatives as well.
Well, I think the reason it's controversial is probably not, I think they all agree with you. I think that inside, if you were to sort of, put them into a corner and whisper to each other, they'd probably say, hey, we agree with you, John. But I think the reason is, and this is what, Rush Limbaugh says so many times, is that people are not sort of happy within themselves. They're always wondering, what are the other people going to say? They don't want to be attacked by the alt-left, the left-stream media, the Democratic State Party control media. So they want to go on these shows and they want people to sort of like them. And if they come, the R word, the big R, the R word, the racist word, when that gets thrown out at a lot of people, especially if you happen to be white, boy, oh boy, it can stop people in their tracks if they're not grounded in their
that's absolutely right. And they're so worried about that I had a lot of people who thought it was controversial. They read the piece, they said, okay, this makes perfect sense. This is a good argument. And I have to agree with you, but they would never go on CNN and say that. Especially, and that's why I think I'm in a unique position. I can say that and make an argument that probably a white person's not going to be able to make, just because, the minute they call you a racist, you can't escape that label, and the argument, unfortunately, is over. So I think that it, puts me in a unique position, but it really is common sense that I'm arguing. And of course it was when, I knew it was going to make waves, and I knew it was going to be something that was deemed as provocative. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's that provocative of an idea. I think that, we're at a point in American history. If we don't decide now, okay, let's get rid of these identity politics months, what point in American history are we going to do it? We have blacks in prominent positions everywhere. Every industry, we have prominent blacks. The black middle class has been exploding, for half a century. And at a certain point, you got to say, hey, blacks are no longer oppressed. It's over. Let's get over it and let's move on so we can prosper in the future.
Well, we haven't had a black president yet, right?
Nope, not yet. And that's the thing. If you can be the president of the United States,
right.
You can be the most powerful man in the world. How can you possibly make the argument that we're oppressed?
No, absolutely. And then you talked in your article, you also said that, sometimes Hollywood actors, they get it better. And actor Morgan Freeman said that I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history, and it shouldn't just be relegated to just 1 month. So here's somebody within Hollywood, the hypocrites in Hollywood, that at least somebody gets it right.
And I can't put it better than Morgan Freeman. He put it excellently. He said, I don't want my history to be relegated to just a month. Black history is American history. And plus, you can't beat it in his voice. The minute he says it in that voice, it just sounds so perfect. Right. But he gets it. And, I disagree with him on some stuff, but it just shows that It actually is not a conservative liberal thing. It's something that I think is quite honestly, common sense, and common sense people understand it.
Well, getting a little bit off your subject, off the topic that you were in terms of your article, give me your thoughts of what did you think of the State of the Union?
Oh, I thought it was magnificent. I really did. I thought it was very well written. I thought it was very well delivered. And I thought, he went in saying, I want to do a speech. This was coming out of the White House, and the initial report said this is going to be a speech that is unifying, that is bipartisan. I said, how the hell is President Trump going to do that? Right. I mean, in this day and age, what he's going to go, he thinks he's going to go and unify things. And he did in some senses. I mean, I know that the opinion is split, but I got to say, when I saw, the women in white, the white-clad women.
Oh, right, yes.
But when I saw them and there were plenty of moments where they did sit, and I think this is disgraceful that they're sitting. But there was that moment where they all stood. He was talking about women's accomplishments in Congress and hiring, and they all stood up and they were dancing and high-fiving, and so were the Republicans. I thought that was an amazing moment. And I said, he did it. I mean, he found a way to connect to the left. He found a way to connect to the right. So I thought that it was about as unifying as you're going to. The things that weren't unifying, he said that America will never be a socialist nation, and they sat for that. I mean, if you can't say America is a country that was founded on freedom and was founded on free market enterprise, and not get everyone to stand up, that's not your fault. That's not President Trump's fault. That's the socialists' fault who sat for that. But I thought he did a great job of bringing the country together.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And, the thing was that, just like you mentioned, they didn't stand for the accomplishments of what he was giving olive branches. He was he even said, hey, one time, he was smart, he was witty. Hey, one time he smiled, said, hey, don't sit down yet. If you like that, you're going to love this and whatever. Yeah. But they stood up for themselves at that time, and it sort of made it look like that they were only looking out, for themselves. Hey, listen, John, we've coming up against a hard break here. We'd love to keep you on for another segment. Would you mind staying here for a while we go through this break? Thanks so much. And you're listening here to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos, and we're around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. I'm your host, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, with our executive producer, Rick Trader, on the other side. And we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go away. Just listen to our sponsors.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, you could check out our websites, ccrshow.com or CCRS Network. Please like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Our guest this segment is John Miller. He's the Blaze Media's White House correspondent. John, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time, and please forgive my voice. I'm a little bit hoarse today.
Hope you get better.
Well, it's like a cold. See me in a week. I'll be great. Your commentary, it's time to end Black History Month. Why do we want to divide America? John, I totally agree with you. This whole idea of the hyphenated American, I think, has got to go. But I'll tell you what the problem I have with Black History Month or Martin Luther King Day, or even Veterans Day or Memorial Day, John. It's because it's been made a holiday. And what do people do on holidays? They go to the mall, they go to movies, they go on vacation, they go skiing, they have a great time, but they really don't study what the veterans did or what Martin Luther King did. And I feel time would be better served, especially for kids, if they spent that time in the classroom learning about Martin Luther King. Right. And I'll tell you, I'll let you respond, but I'll tell you where I'm coming from. I was working in a school project as an adult. You know, I sponsored a school project. It was an aviation project. And during that time, we brought the Tuskegee Airmen into the school. And I bet the kids learned more about Black history in that one day, John, than they did all year.
Absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, a holiday, and that was my problem with Black History Month, is that so many people use it, you know, to just, Snapchat and Instagram and all of the apps that the kids are on, you know, the cool kids, all of the stuff that they use. They feature filters. So, what a filter is, it will be like a background. So you put your face and you take pictures of yourself, you share it with your friends, and it will say, so-and-so celebrating Black History Month. And so basically you go about your day the exact same way as you would, and maybe you even do more fun stuff. Like you said, Martin Luther King Day, you go skiing, and you take pictures, you take selfies with the phone, and you put, I'm celebrating Black History Month, and that's all you need to do. And I think it does nothing to actually educate people about Black heroes, about Black figures in our history that need to be revered. And I absolutely agree with you. Time would be better spent in schools studying these things and studying these. I mean, they do the same thing with Christmas. I mean, they took the Christ out of Christmas, and it's at the point where Christmas is barely about the birth of Christ anymore. It's commercialized. So I think that's true for any holiday. You're absolutely right.
Okay. John, and you and Nasser were talking about this, and I'll bring it up again. You write in your article. You suspected that would be an unpopular proposal among appearing liberals. But what was shocking to you, how many conservatives were appalled by the idea that we would do away with Black History Month? Do you think that's white guilt, John?
I think it might be. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Well, I can. And unfortunately, there's certain things I can say that you can't. Certain things you can say I can't. But
right.
We're not very politically correct here. We try to be accurate.
I think you're right. I think that it's just accepted. They think, oh, of course we celebrate Black History Month because, if you don't celebrate Black History Month, that means you don't like Black people. No, it doesn't mean you don't like Black people. It doesn't mean you're racist. It just means you don't want to dedicate an entire month to pretending like you care about Black people, only to the next month forget about it. I mean, that's the problem with it, is that, when Women's History Month comes along in March, all of a sudden Black people are no longer important and they don't care about them. So I think that it is I think it might be some of that. I also think that it's just they accept this is what we do. This is, of course, this is a good thing. And we would dare not question it because, like we talked about in the previous segment, otherwise you will be deemed a racist.
All right. Here in a Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is John Miller. He's Blaze Media's White House correspondent. And John, we're talking about Black History Month. We're talking about history. I love history. In your article, you talk a little bit about the history of Black History Month and how we got it. Could you educate our listeners?
Sure. It started in the 1920s. It started in the 1920s as Negro History Week. So it was just relegated to a week. And it was started because they wanted the schools to actually have a program that focused on Black heroes. And I believe at the time in the 1920s, that was needed. There was a time where in our education system, Blacks weren't integrated into the history lessons and they weren't being talked about. And I think that was an important thing then. But they said eventually we want it to be Black History Year. And that meant that we want it to be so that all year Black history is celebrated because Black history is American history. We want it to be integrated. And so it grew, and then eventually it was declared a national holiday and or a national event and observance. And it was I think it was maybe a mistake to do that, but it probably was still at a time when it needed to happen. And I think now we're at a time where it does not.
John, I love history. I consider myself a student of history. One of the things that upsets me is when I watch programs like on the Civil War or whatever. What's really what I think really bothers whites about seeing Black history is how whites are portrayed as being such the bad guys. We went through a period of history in our country I don't think was a very good time, and that was the time of slavery. But it seems to me that the media continued to use slavery as a whipping post to punish whites.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I will mention that just to your last point about why Republicans, want to do it. I mean, it was a Republican who declared it a national holiday. It was Ford. And he said, and so a lot of Republicans feel like, well, if a Republican did it, we must do it. But to get to your other point about white guilt and slavery, and therefore it being taught in our schools, it's one of those things where they teach Blacks. It annoys white people, but it actually does more harm to Black people, because what it does to Black people it says our nation was founded on racism. First of all, that's not true. I mean, that was the big dilemma during the founding period was, okay, we believe that all men are created equal. We also have this economy that was built on slavery, a bad institution. And the whole point of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence was trying to figure out how do we reconcile these two and how do we eventually get it so that we live up to our values that all men are free. So the idea that the country was actually founded on racism is inaccurate. It was founded on the idea that man is free, that all men are created equal. And the Constitution had to figure out how do we eventually phase this horrible institution that unfortunately is baked into our setup here. How do we eventually end that? And so that was the big dilemma that the founders had to figure out. And you read their writings and you read how most of them were in complete agreement that slavery was a horrible institution. And furthermore, we are the only country in world history that fought a war against ourselves to get rid of slavery. So, right. I mean, not only are we not founded on racism, but we literally are, the purpose of America has been how to figure out how to make sure that we live up to our value that all men are actually created equal. So,
John, as I mentioned, we had a terrible time in history, 87 years of slavery. That wrong was righted.
Yes.
Thank God for that. But I want to tell you, we've had you as a guest a couple of times, John. You don't know very much about me, as I don't know a lot about you. But it is a fact. My first ancestor into the New World was a slave. He came here as an indentured slave at 15 years old. And the other part of my family came here as immigrants. And, John, I thank God. I thank God however I got here. I am here because I think that the United States is the greatest place on God's blue-green planet. And irregardless of how each of us got here, we should be thankful to be living here and not someplace like Cuba or Venezuela or even Russia or parts of Eastern Europe that aren't so good. And John, am I thinking too far outside the box?
I mean, in 2019, you just might be. That kind of thinking is very unpopular amongst our sophisticated and elitist circles here. But it's true because all the countries you mentioned where you're glad you weren't born, where are they trying to come? They're all trying to come here.
Yeah.
They know they're trying to come here for a reason. It is because we are the best country in the world. They know that. We know that. But then we have to pretend that it's not true. But if they had such great situations in the country where they were from, there would be no reason for them to try to come here. And America is the envy of the world. Everyone knows it to be true. The American left tries to pretend it's not true, but they're not being honest with themselves, because everyone from across the world is trying to come here. And I just ask that when they come here, they support, they learn, and they be inculcated in the things that made us great. Because remember, America is not based on anything genetic. We're not based on DNA. We're based on a value system. We're based on ideas. And you have to learn those ideas, because it is those ideas that make this country great. And if you don't learn those ideas and you bring people in who don't understand them, who don't love our Constitution, we're not going to be America anymore.
John Miller, White House correspondent for Blaze Media. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, John. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work and read your articles.
Sure. Well, you can go to the Blaze where my articles are. You can listen to my work, actually. I'm actually excited to announce this. We just launched a podcast. So if you are a podcast listener, check it out. It is White House Brief. It is the podcast version of my show. Search in iTunes, White House Brief, into the search bar. It should come up, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can go to Spotify, iTunes, online, but you'll find it. It's White House Brief. That's the name of my show. You can also see my videos at blazetv.com. That's blazetv.com.
John Miller, again, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Take care. God bless.
Take care, John.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be talking about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on Monday affirmed a U.S. District Court ruling granting summary judgment to the Department of Homeland Security in a lawsuit challenging the use of waiver authority in border barrier construction. Don't go away. Nasser and I will be right back with our next guest.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to health care or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
Together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Well, welcome back, everybody, and you're listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show. I happen to be your host. My name is Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and on the other side, our executive producer, Rick Trader. If you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of today's show, you can check out our websites at www.ccrsnetwork.com or www.ccrshow.com. For the audio version, it's ccrshow.com, and for the version, if you want to watch us on the AUN TV network, just go to conservativecommandosradioshow.com. Well, we have a great guest today. Her name is Jennifer VanLaar. She is a Southern California-based political communications and research consultant. Prior to her current position, which is a senior contributor at Red State, she was a weekend editor at townhall.com and a contributor to IJ Review and Ricochet. Jennifer, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we want to talk to you about two of the articles that you've written. One was about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on Monday that was affirmed by the U.S. District Court, and also an article about Kamala Harris. Kamala likes full jails. They're cheap labor. So let me ask the first question, and that is, could you give our listening audience an idea as to, and this is something that I've always asked, you're the President of the United States of America. You're supposed to have a certain amount of authority that's granted to you by the Constitution, and yet every time we found out what happens, especially within this administration, more so than probably others, I may be wrong, but I call myself Dr. Right because I never am. But anyways, my question is, why is it that they can go shopping and you can get any federally elected judge, he can deem a duly authorized order by the president, and then he can call it unconstitutional. Everything has to come to a complete stop, and now you've got to go ahead and now you've got to try that in the court system, go through the appellate courts, reach the Ninth Circuit or some other one, they rule against you again. Then you take it to the Supreme Court. It takes 6, 7, 8 months. In the meantime, everything is becoming so chaotic. Can you give our listeners an idea? I mean, how did this all come about? I thought the president has at least some ultimate authority here.
In general, or talking about this, what they call border barriers?
Right. Let's talk about the border barrier.
Because in general, I'm a pretty big fan of the courts having the ability to review whether it's the president or Kamala Harris, and she was our attorney general, her executive decisions, because a lot of times it ends up, at least with Kamala, with us having fewer rights. But I definitely see the point on the border barrier. And the thing that happened with this border barrier, the court ruling yesterday actually only applied to 2 sections where they're replacing existing fence with more effective and things that aren't 40 years old, 30 or 40, I can't remember exactly. But what the authority on that wasn't necessarily, it was through an executive order, but the executive order directed DHS to use a 1996 act, Clinton administration era, that gives the DHS authority to, the secretary can just say, we are instituting a waiver on this because it's to make more expeditious construction of border barriers to protect our country, basically. And these groups wanted to say that she couldn't do that, even though it says right there in the law that she can.
Well, so my question then is, if they're utilizing this on just those 2 areas, and correct me if I'm wrong, they said that the previous barriers that were set up, didn't sort of violate any of the natural habitats or environment at that time. So now just replacing them, if it didn't do anything harm before, by replacing them, it's not going to do any current harm now. Is that sort of just an easy way of interpreting what the courts ruled?
Well, the courts basically, they didn't rule really on the environmental issue. They just ruled that the DHS doesn't have to comply with whatever existing environmental regulations are because they have this waiver. And so they didn't rule on the environmental issues themselves, if that makes sense.
Well, could they utilize this ruling to other parts of border fence that are also dilapidated and cite this?
Yes. Yes.
So if they've done that, it looks like that this is now predicated that any place along the southern border, or any border, let's say, where you've got dilapidated or fencing or barriers that are, outdated, this ruling were in effect. And now you're only worried about new fencing and which is a whole different area, but at least the old dilapidated stuff should be taken care of, correct?
Basically, yeah. And so what the court basically was saying was that DHS has the authority, the secretary has the authority to issue these waivers and bypass rulemaking procedures and environmental laws and to do all of this. So that's going to apply to any section of wall, whether it's new or replacing existing. Where you're going to come into problems with new wall construction would be other tangential issues that might have to do with it, with eminent domain or other things like that.
All right.
But here they were very I've been to where those areas of fence are that are being replaced, and they were done in the early 90s. So it was a whole different game then as far as the environmental laws.
Well, let me switch gears here just a little and say that, let's say now for the areas that they're talking about that's going to be brand new, why can't President Trump utilize the Secure Fence Act of 2006 and basically say, look, they already allocated funds at that time for a border barrier, whatever you want to call the terminology. Is it just that everyone's stuck on the terminology that a wall or a barrier? Why can't the Secure Fence Act be enacted?
Well, it could, and he could use that as justification, just like in this executive order that he told them specifically to use that 1996 Act authority in any way that they needed to. He could tell them to use that as justification, and I'm sure that the same groups will still challenge it in court. And if this is the kind of ruling that we're getting from these judges that ruled on it were Obama and Clinton appointees, these weren't really conservative, then I say, fine, go challenge it so we can get precedent saying that we can do this.
Okay. Understood.
Because it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same thinking, the same line of thinking.
Gotcha. Well, let's take a look at one of your other articles that you wrote, and this is quite interesting, especially what's happening, leading up. I know it's 2 years or a little bit less than 2 years, but boy, the Democrats are full out, and I think Kamala, made her presence known. Is this someone that you've been following for some time, and what she's done previously in California? Okay, all right. So, talking about that opposition dump on Friday, basically, where Senator Amy Klobuchar was a target of that BuzzFeed story. And so you basically say, turn around is fair play. What's your thought process on Kamala? And, you wrote about that, here's this person that talks about, the $15 minimum wage, and even people that shouldn't, that are not working should still be paid. Yet here she was basically a proponent of keeping, people in jail, lock them up, and utilizing the cheap labor for California within the penal system.
Yeah, if nothing else, Kamala's a huge hypocrite in every aspect of everything. I've followed her from the work I've done with civil rights groups in California, and she's just not a fan of anyone having control but her and whatever theme that she wants on that day. So on the what I wrote about, there would have been a court order because the California prisons were so overcrowded that the Supreme Court said it was equated cruel and unusual punishment. So the state was ordered to reduce the number of inmates in there, and they did that by trying to let out nonviolent offenders, just give them early parole. That's opens a whole other can of worms as it comes to California and why we have all the crises we have now. But anyway, they were not really letting the people out. They weren't following the rules. So 3 years later, this federal judge had to order them to start letting these people out to meet these population reduction things. And her Department of Justice argument was that we need these people that are making less than $2 a day to work in fire camps and do gardening and do chef kind of duties, which is insane. So you can't play both sides of that coin. I'm totally fine with inmates having to work to have their keep. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with people being hypocrites.
Oh, I think a lot of the people on the right, really do. In terms of that, Jennifer, we've only got a minute here, so I've got to take this break. We'd love to keep you for another segment. Could you stick around for us for a little bit?
Sure thing.
Perfect. Well, here we are you're coming to us from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet, here with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7, and also can be seen on the AUN TV Broadcasting Network in California. I'm your host, Dr. Nasser Sheikh. On the other side, we've got Rick Trader, and we are speaking with Jennifer VanLaar, and she's been talking to us about two of her articles about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and also Kamala Harris, that Kamala likes full jails and their cheap labor. Rick, we're going to take us into a break.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty
Health Share. This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com. You can find our radio version there, and our television version can be found at conservativecommandosradioshow.com. Jennifer VanLaar, she's a senior contributor at Red State, is joining us today. Jennifer, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Excuse me. Jennifer, one of your articles is about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed a U.S. District Court ruling that granted summary judgment to the Department of Homeland Security in a lawsuit challenging the DHS's use of waiver authority in border barrier construction. Jennifer, as you said, this ruling is only for sections of the fence to be repaired. Could this ruling be seen as a good sign that Trump might have the court's authority to build other sections of the fence that don't already exist? Or is that just thinking too far?
I think that it's definitely a good sign. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I do read a lot of opinions, and that's one of my areas of research.
Right.
And there are others. So DHS has issued notice on 7 waivers for different parts of construction. Some of them are new construction. But these plaintiffs only challenged the first 2 waivers, which happen to be in Calexico and San Diego in California for replacement. So if they are saying that, which they did in this ruling, that DHS wasn't making an arbitrary and capricious decision, and that this is one of the forums or one of the things that DHS is responsible for is border security, that means that that's within their scope to issue these waivers. So that can be seen as a good thing, because that can still go on to the new parts of the fence.
See, when conservatives, whenever they hear the words the Ninth Circuit Court, they go, "Oh my God!" They think there's no way they're ever going to work along with the president. But you also write in your article that Monday's ruling issued by a 3-judge panel that the plaintiffs can request a hearing by the full Ninth Circuit Court judges. Do you think that's going to happen?
I wouldn't be surprised, because historically the California Attorney General's office does request in bank rehearings, and then it's actually not the full panel, because the Ninth is so big. They actually do a drawing to see which, I think it's either 9 or 12 judges hear it. That's more problematic, because the chief judge in the Ninth is extremely liberal. But even then, if the DHS lost, they could still appeal to the Supreme Court.
Jennifer, in the first part of the interview, you mentioned to Nasser that you've been to the border. You've been to these fences or walls. Do you think they're effective from what you observed?
No, and I will send you a link that you can send to your listeners. There's some areas of it. I was in the San Ysidro part, from San Ysidro out to the ocean, which is a few miles. And the wall is old landing mats from the Vietnam War that were surplus, that they hastily put up a wall because there were so many people coming in from Mexico in the middle of the night that were stealing cars, that were doing all kinds of crimes, and the residents there got sick of it. They put that up. And there is a second fence that is taller, but there's parts along there where there's this highway in Tijuana that basically someone could jump out of a car and into the United States. Because it's that low, because of the geography.
So in your opinion, these walls, in order to be effective, would definitely need to be upgraded, not updated, correct?
Absolutely. And they're solid, and so the Border Patrol's had to cut little slats in there so they could see through, because you need to be able to see who's on the other side.
All right, well, let's switch
gears.
So
they definitely need it.
Let's switch gears for a minute to your other article. I wish we had more time with you, but these are a couple interesting articles. That Kamala likes full jails because they are cheap labor. You were talking with Nasser about this. It seems to me very interesting that Amy Klobuchar had her problems, and then out of nowhere, Kamala Harris has hers. Do you think these two camps are working against each other?
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's other candidates involved too. And with Kamala, there's such a wealth of things that can be said about her. Even today, there was a story out about her saying in college she smoked weed while she was listening to Tupac.
Right.
But yet she wants to criminalize all these other people. She throws all these drug people in jail. She put more black men in jail than the Clintons did.
Interesting.
Through all of their aggressive wars on things. So you're gonna see dribbles coming out for a long time on Kamala.
Well, in your story, you talk about the backstory. Can you rehash that for us in this segment? The backstory of the Kamala Harris, how she used and liked to use prison labor because it was cheap.
Right. So when there was a prison overcrowding trial, a lawsuit that was brought class action to the Supreme Court ordered the state to reduce its prison population. And within 3 years, they still hadn't done that. And so the plaintiffs went back to the court and said, they're not doing what you said, make them do it. And one of the reasons they gave why they hadn't been doing it was because if they gave all of these nonviolent offenders that were otherwise eligible for parole, if they let all them out, then they wouldn't have people in the kitchens and as janitors that work from 8 cents to 37 cents an hour or $2 a day at fire camps, then it would be a problem for the state. But then what she did was just when she heard about it, she claimed that she didn't know that was the argument her staff was making.
Right. Well, you would think she would know what her staff is doing. After all, she expects Donald Trump to know what everybody in Washington, D.C. is talking about. But you also write in your
Or the way that she grilled Judge Kavanaugh, the way that she grilled Brett Kavanaugh in every email and everything, a little bit of a double standard.
But it also, she likes to have it both ways, and you write in your article, and again, please excuse my voice. I'm dealing with something here called a cold. A spokesman claimed Harris was responsible through her office for a subsequent settlement between parties that, quote, expanded the use of the 2-for-1 credits. Also, that's how it goes. When it's an argument that doesn't sit well with her political base, she didn't know anything about it. But when there's a settlement letting more people out of prisons, she gets credit for what her office did. So, can you talk a little bit about
that's just
that?
how she rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's how she is with everything.
Well, Jennifer, maybe that what you threw in there explains it all. That in college, she said she smoked pot. In fact, she brags about inhaling. She claims to smoke pot while listening to music by Snoop Dogg and Tupac Shakur. Tell us why that's impossible.
I don't. I have not been reading too much of the story today, so I don't know.
Because she was in college in the 1980s. She graduated in 1986, and Snoop Dogg didn't become, and Tupac didn't become popular into the 1990s.
Until after that.
So maybe.
Yes. Now that I know the dates, then now I know why it was impossible. I think she has a Cory Booker problem. He was saying different things that he did at different times that were impossible. These people, they just come up with a story that they think sounds good. And at least for Kamala, she's used to the press not challenging her claims here in California.
Well,
she's used to just being able to say whatever she wants.
Maybe
and no one ever checks
sharing
it.
that bong with people like, I don't know, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. You know what I mean? Hey, Jennifer.
Right.
Jennifer, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Jennifer VanLaar is a senior contributor at Red State. Jennifer, please tell our audience how they could read your articles and follow your work.
Sure. They can read me at redstate.com/Jen VanLaar or at Twitter at Jen VanLaar, Jen, and then VanLaar.
Well, Jen, we broadcast on 7 television stations out there in California. So please be a friend of the show. Come back soon.
I will. Thank you.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasser Sheikh and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Jane Orient. We're going to be talking about the State of the Union 2019 and American medicine. Is there a connection? We'll find out after this.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Serious allegations of voter fraud. The claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos radio studios. I am your host, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and my co-host on the other side is our executive producer, Rick Trader. If you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of today's show, please check out our websites. For the audio version, you can go to ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. And to watch us on the AUN TV network, you can go to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.com. That's Conservative Commandos Radio Show.com. And our guest today is a returning guest. She is Jane Orient. She's a medical doctor. She is currently the president of Doctors for Disaster Preparedness. She's also been the chairperson for the Public Health Committee for the Arizona Medical Society. She's also written a book called Your Doctor Is Not In, Healthy Skepticism About National Health Care. And this. She's also co-authored several novels for children, Kindle Professor, old-fashioned English grammar books. She's also currently the managing editor for the Journal of the American Physicians and Surgeons. Dr. Orient, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Great to be with you.
Wonderful. Well, we want to talk to you about the article that you wrote about the State of the Union and American medicine. And you go on in your article and you basically elaborate some of the points that President Trump touched on, both what was happening from the right and the left. But one of the things I want to ask you is, going into the State of the Union, you know, they always hype these. There's so much hyperbole that this is going to be like the next great speech, and it's going to be whatever it's coming from the Democrats or the Republicans, and everybody sort of hypes it. And then usually after they come out with this speech, very rarely do you get a sense of that somebody really did something in the speech itself. Were you thinking that President Trump was going to sort of deliver the type of speech that he did? Did that surprise you at all?
I can't really say that I was surprised. I thought that it really was a great speech, and he said some things that I was surprised to hear him say it, like he used the terms illegal alien. He talked about the horrors of socialism and how America would never become a socialist country, apparently not realizing that we're already well along that path, but I suppose he couldn't say that out loud. I think he brought up some extremely important points for our health and safety concerning the invasion that's coming to us from the South that is a hazard not just to us, but to the migrants who are being abused by the coyotes and illegal drug traffickers, and not just the drug traffickers, but those who are actually selling women and girls into sex slavery here. I wish he'd gotten more into the fact that the reason that these international crime cartels are successful is because they are being sheltered in sanctuary cities, that our law enforcement has its hands tied when trying to prosecute them, and there are probably a lot of vested interests in the United States who are profiting from this illegal trade.
You know, that's something that I wanted to ask you since you touched on that. Aren't there a lot of charitable organizations, NGOs and others that are getting not just thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, but are actually being able to, you know, through the way the government bureaucracies work, millions of dollars that are coming to these charitable organizations to house, to shelter, to do whatever for these illegal aliens as they come into our borders, and they're released into these cities sometimes at night. So could you talk about a little bit about, you know, what's happening on that blind side that Americans really don't hear about?
I think this was more accessible back in 2014 when so many unaccompanied minors were being resettled from Central America. I think Catholic, Lutheran, Baptist social services were being paid, as you say, millions of dollars for these resettlement operations. We know that into the Tucson International Airport, there were charter flights coming in the middle of the night when no one would be in the airport to witness them, where children were being brought in from Texas, and then they were being sent out from Tucson to other places, California and other states of the Union, and nobody really knew what was going on. Our public health authority promised to look into this for me, but he never did. The children were being tested to some extent for illnesses, but it really wasn't clear how much they were being tested, where they were being sent, precautions were being taken. Maybe they were being sent to all these schools in the Midwest, and just coincidentally, there were outbreaks of horrible respiratory diseases sending American children to ICUs, possibly because they were exposed to something that the incoming children were somewhat immune to, but American children had never been in contact with before, so they were fully susceptible. But all of these things, just the information was not really there. I mean, the CDC was saying, well, we don't know what happened, but there was no evidence that they had done the sort of investigation that would be necessary to figure out what had happened. So, yeah, I think this is bad. There are people who have said that the folks caring for many of these migrants were appalled at how sick some of the children were, that some of these very dedicated volunteers or even people who were hired by these agencies would spend hours picking nits for lice out of the children's hair, but they weren't allowed to talk about that. They were told that if they did talk about it, they could lose their jobs.
Wow.
It seems that they're handcuffed at every point. It's sort of like, for example, within our justice system, we have statistics on almost everything that's out there. But if you try to find out statistics as to what's happening with the illegal alien population and what they've committed, I think it was, we're talking about that basically they've only done it really in the state of Texas, that we can have some of these numbers that we can sort of cull from and find out exactly what's going on. But elsewhere, they're not to be found. And you're saying the same thing here, where doctors or nurses or people in the healthcare arena, if they start talking about these things that are going on, they're being threatened with, they're losing their job or facing ridicule from their, peers. I mean, it's just incredible. I want to basically quote from your article here, Doctor, is that the president, you said, he called for vision versus vengeance and a culture of forgiveness. But you write that we're faced with incompatible visions, which is true. I mean, this is, everybody talks about, boy, we want to have a kumbaya moment. Couldn't we just all get together if we just talk? I just don't see that happening anymore. We're so polarized right now. It's so right. It's so left. These incompatible visions, socialism, capitalism, democracy. I mean, these are just on so opposite sides of the spectrum. Is this where we're headed? I mean, is that where we're headed in all of this?
Well, it looks as though they are incompatible. I mean, how can you have a nice civil discussion with people who are scorning you, who are trying everything they can to prevent you from doing your work or to kick you out of office, and who obviously have a vision that is diametrically opposed to yours? I mean, they will call you a xenophobe for wanting to put America first. Well, who did they want to put first? I mean, Mexico, Russia, Cuba, the UN. It isn't really clear what they want, but apparently what they don't want is to put American people, the ones who are working and paying the taxes and suffering the consequences of crime that shouldn't be here. I mean, they are really of no concern.
You're right. I mean, I think, and you sort of struck this in the initial question that I asked you in the beginning, was that I think Donald Trump understands the language of just common American folk, flyover country. Like you said, he actually used the word illegal alien. He actually used the word, in terms of talking about Governor Cuomo and Governor Northam, in terms of, where how do you have that coming together, that, a moment where you can sort of come together and compromise when some people on the other side are advocating for the death of a child, whether it's the first, second, third, or what I call the fourth trimester. I mean, how do you come together on that? How do you come together on either killing something or allowing it to live? You can't.
That is the point. And for some people to be furious about calling this infanticide when there's just no other word for what's happening. If you take a little baby that's crying and struggling to breathe and is kicking and is very much alive, and you lay him down on a cold steel counter until he dies, what do you call that?
I can't even, I can't, every time I see that anywhere on the internet or on a video, or people are twittering it or I just don't. It's amazing. I don't have many words. How can somebody do that, especially a medical doctor who's supposed to, the first thing, do no harm? It's just incredible. Doctor, we're coming up against a hard break here. We'd like to keep you for another segment. Could you hold for us for a little bit?
Sure, I sure will.
Perfect. We're here speaking to Dr. Jane Orient. She's currently the president of Doctors for Disaster Preparedness, about an article about the State of the Union 2019 and American Medicine. And you're listening to us here on the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. I'm your host, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and I've got my executive producer and co-host on the other side, Rick Trader, and we're going to take it into a break for a couple of minutes. Don't go away. We've got more to talk about with Dr. Jane Orient.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Socialism has been kicking around as a philosophy of economics and government since the beginning of the 19th century, impelled by Karl Marx and the communist movement, but before that by establishment figures like George Bernard Shaw, who wrote The Intelligent Woman's Guide to Socialism. And in Britain, socialism was the theme of a political party, the Labour Party. And it was overtly adopted as the philosophy of government after Churchill was defeated after World War II. And they didn't shy from calling themselves socialists, and they adopted a socialist program. But in America, socialism has remained a dirty word. Even those who've moved up to advocating it have shied away from that more than a program or a platform. There was a socialist party in the beginning of the 20th century, but it never got more than 15% of the vote, and died a quick death. But now we have a Democratic Party that is overtly advocating socialism, not the Scandinavian socialism, which is keep industry in private hands, let the economy stay as it is, but lay onto it high government taxes and massive new government services. That's what you see in Sweden and Scandinavia, and to some extent in Britain, Germany, and France. Not that at all. Instead, the Marx socialism, which is take the means of production away from the private sector and vest the control in the government. Let the government run the banks, the utilities, the steel companies, the car companies, the industries, the services, Apple, IBM, Amazon. Let the government run it all. And that philosophy has never been tested in American politics. The phrase social is appealing to those who want to demonstrate their revolution against the establishment. But among Democrats lately, the Pew Research poll showed socialism was 10 points more popular than capitalism as a governing philosophy. Well, socialism simply replaces the tyranny of the marketplace with the tyranny of the government. And instead of winnings and gains and the good things in life being rationed by money, they're rationed by government favor. And the weakness of capitalism is greed, and the weakness of socialism is corruption. and corruption inevitably dominates the government under socialism, and it becomes a tool for political conformity and ultimately for regimentation. Because the key difference is that the capitalist lets people decide what they want to do. Pursue your own enterprise, make money as you wish, invest in what you want, work where you want. Because it doesn't much care about the outcome. It just wants the process to go ahead. But socialism cares passionately about the outcome. And as a result, it has to regiment each step of society to make sure there's no climate change, make sure that health care can become available, make sure that that we don't have carbon-guzzling cars or airplanes or whatever they're going to zero in on. It becomes a formula for regimentation and militarization, really, of the economic sector. And as such, it eliminates choice and leads to what was once called the road to serfdom. And we're going to have a real debate over that now. And it's about time we had. And the capitalists are going to win overwhelmingly.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to health care or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
Together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
And you're listening and watching us on the Conservative Commandos radio network and studios and around the world on TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7, and on the AUN TV network in California. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of the audio version of our show, you can go to ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Or if you want to watch us, the video version, just go to conservativecommandosradioshow.com. That's conservativecommandosradioshow.com. We have Dr. Jane Orient, who's a medical doctor. She is currently the president of Doctors for Disaster Preparedness, and she's also the managing editor of Journal of American Physicians and Surgeons. Dr. Orient, we thank you for staying with us. We certainly appreciate your time. And I know that my co-host, Rick Trader, has got some questions that he'd like to ask for you. So, Rick, go ahead.
Dr. Jane, always great to have you with us. Thank you for your time and your patience through that break. Doctor, your article about the State of the Union 2019 in American Medicine, you write, when the president congratulated the woman for their increased representation in Congress, this bloc rose to their feet with wild applause. Doctor, what did you think of that whole vision of them applauding themselves in their white-clad suits?
I think that's what they were applauding themselves. It looked like they were cheering at a high school championship game when their team had scored a touchdown. It was just that sort of thing. But the rest of the time, they just sat there with their arms crossed, with open derision of the president, or agenda items like, let's cooperate, let's try to celebrate the good things about America, let's be glad that we're becoming energy independent, let's be proud of our law enforcement agents and our explorers and our people who are fighting, bravely fighting diseases, and just to be applauding only themselves and not a word of appreciation or sign of appreciation for the Americans that make this country work. It was just shocking.
Well, Dr. Orient, do you think the image that the American people saw, beyond the alleged solidarity of everybody wearing white and jumping up and down and applauding themselves, the images of them not having compassion or not applauding for the good things in America, the strides that we made, do you think that the American people will see beyond that those white-clad dresses or business suits or whatever they are?
Well, I think that most Americans may be able to see through that and to see what these people really are like, how cold and unfeeling they are about babies who are fighting for their lives and are having their lives snuffed out, about women who are being gagged and carried across the unsecured areas of the border and sold into slavery. Their lack of compassion for the women in Venezuela who are rooting through garbage cans, trying to find something to feed their starving children.
Well, they
compassion.
Will, Doctor, they will tell you they are, and that's why they want an open border policy. Do you buy that argument?
I absolutely do not, because the reason people are coming here is maybe, for some of them, are coming here maybe to find a better life for themselves. A lot of them who are coming here are either engaged in criminal activity themselves or exploiting people, especially women and children, to get themselves into the country, whereas these women and children are not going to have a better life. They're going to be drug mules or sex slaves. I mean, that's just not really compassion.
Doctor, what about the white ladies of Havana? Who are they?
They are these women who are still, after they wear white, after church on Sunday mornings, they march peacefully, just in remembrance of their sons and their brothers and their husbands and their fathers who have been tortured and killed by the Castro dictatorship that actually these Democratic Socialists of America tend to celebrate.
Well, you know, Doctor, we've heard and we've read about Bernie Sanders and his new mentor, Ocasio-Cortez, and they're praising the medical facilities, the medical conditions, the staffing, the medical system in Cuba. Do you think that is accurate?
Well, no, it's not. I mean, if you look past the Potemkin villages, you can see emaciated, sick patients being carried in a wheelbarrow to a hospital hoping to get some care, but there's nothing there except filth, and there are no medicines, and the Cuban doctors are being sent to Africa under really like slave labor conditions. The real people in Cuba, they have very poor access to medical care, and Bernie Sanders will say, "Well, they get their children educated and cared for," but it's just a lie.
Dr. Orient, we have seen many examples around the world where socialism has failed. I can't think of anywhere where it's been successful. But why does this gang think that they can make it work and make it work here?
It is really difficult to understand. I mean, it certainly failed every single time it's been tried in the United States, starting with the early colonists. But there have been many utopian colonies that were started in the U.S. 100 years ago, and every single one of them failed, despite their high ideals and different means of governance. It's just contrary to human nature. It just doesn't work. And I think that most of the people who are pushing for this are really seeking their own power, and maybe a lot of their supporters are what some of the Soviets called useful idiots. They think that they're really going to get a brave new world, but when they finally come to their senses, it's probably too late, because they're going to be the first ones that the really bad guys are going to wipe out.
Dr. Jane Orient, president of Doctors for Disaster Preparedness. Doctor, tell us about Doctors for Disaster Preparedness. What do you guys do?
We were started back in the 1980s as a branch of the American Civil Defense Association. That was during the Cold War, and we were promoting civil defense, which has now pretty much been obliterated in the United States, even though nuclear proliferation has really been a big problem, and we face threats not only from Russia but China and North Korea and other places. So we do promote the defense of the United States, the strategic and civil defense, as well as the defense of Americans against policies that are destroying our industry and our social fabric based on false alarms, false threats, and the real destruction of integrity in science.
Well, Dr. Jane Orient, I want to thank you so much for joining us once again here on Conservative Commandos. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work, read your articles, learn more.
The Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, which includes the op-ed that you're talking about, is at aapsonline.org. Doctors for Disaster Preparedness is at ddponline.org. You can follow me on Twitter at jorient, or you can follow AAPS on Twitter at AAPSonline.
Dr. Jane Orient, thank you once again for joining us. We always appreciate the time that you give us and the knowledge, too.
Thank you.
Take care and
my
God
honor.
bless. And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. Nasser and I will be back with more right after.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
My healthcare costs were going to double this year.
Doubled.
Doubled.
It was down to healthcare or my student loans.
I found a better way.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
Liberty Health Share. It's freedom from insurance. At Liberty Health Share, we support each other and keep health costs down. We're changing the way you're paying for health care.
This is the way it should be.
We're all in this together.
We're changing the way you pay for health care.
The movement to help each other is growing.
Liberty Health Share.
This is the way it should be.
This is how I make a difference.
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. The third-party pay system is the culprit. It's taking money out of our pockets. Liberty Health Share has solved that issue by being self-pay patients sharing our medical bills. Liberty Health Share is a grassroots movement all across America where people are abandoning the insurance model and instead are meeting each other's costs in community with one another.
Well, Nasser, that just about wraps it up for today's show. I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. Please tell our audience how they can follow what you're up to when you're not here on Conservative Commandos.
Yeah, they can follow me at Facebook at The Nasser Sheikh Show, or at my email address, which is thenassersheikhshow1@gmail.com. That's the number 1, thenassersheikhshow1@gmail.com, or at my Twitter handle, which is at Nasser Sheikh Show, at Nasser Sheikh Show.
And Nasser, we had 3 great guests once again.
We did. We had John Miller, who is the Blaze Media's White House correspondent, the host of his own podcast, The White House Brief. John talked about his article, It's Time to End Black History Month. So I'm sure he got a little bit of feedback, on that one. We also had Jennifer VanLaar. Now, Jennifer is a Southern California-based political commentator and research consultant. She talked about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and how the Trump administration finally won something. at an appellate level. And she also talked
in the
about
Ninth Circuit, which
in the
is
Ninth
shocking.
Circuit. That's right, which is shocking, you know.
Yes.
But Donald Trump did say winning was going to continue, so chalk up a win there. She also talked about
I'm
an
not sick
article.
of winning yet, Nasser.
Right,
I don't know
right.
about you. I'm not sick of winning.
No. Just it's no losses. Nobody likes to lose. Her other article was about Kamala likes full jails. They're cheap labor. So she's going to talk about, shockingly, how Kamala Harris is probably a hypocrite. Most likely she is.
Right.
And finally, we had Dr. Jane Orient, a returning contributor to us. She is currently the president of Doctors for Disaster Preparedness, and she talked about her article, which was basically an encapsulation of the State of the Union, the State of the Union that President Trump delivered, and how it sort of pertained towards the medical aspect in medicine and medical preparedness. So 3 great guests once again that you've lined up for us there, Rick.
Indeed. Well, again, thank you, Nasser. But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.
Absolutely.